If you want more Texans content, then like today's video. That way we can show our bosses here at Chat Sports that Texans fans deserve more videos and should be a part of the studio rotation more here at Chat Sports. So hit today's thumbs up button to start the video. Welcome into Texans Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson, and on today's show, we're going to run through Bleacher Report, making two suggestions for the front office that is the Houston Texans on a free agent target and a draft target. But let's start with free agency here, as Bleacher Report picked a player for all 32 teams that they thought would be a good signing. And for Houston, they went with former Jets center Connor McGovern. Now, he was a fifth-round pick by Denver back in 2016, and he was there for a couple of seasons, and then he went over to the Jets, where he greatly improved, and he was one of the better centers in football last year. Why is he still a free agent? I don't have a great answer for you. Sometimes GMs and whatnot just get things wrong. Now, here's what Bleacher Report wrote about signing Connor McGovern. Most of the Texans' starting offensive line is locked in, ranging from Laramie Tunsil and Kenyon Green on the left side to Shaq Mason and Titus Howard on the right. But there's a big hole at center, where the Texans could use an upgrade over Scott Quesenberry. Connor McGovern, a superb 5+ year NFL starter, would be just that. Now, before we look at any of the PFF grades for Connor McGovern, let's talk about the current starting center for the Houston Texans, right? If they played a game tomorrow, it would be Scott snapping a football to, I guess Case Keenum if the game is tomorrow. Now, he ranked dead last in PFF last season among qualifying centers, 36 out of 36. His overall grade was 36.6. A little bit better at run blocking than pass blocking, but all across the board, I think we can all admit, or we can all agree on, he was a disaster, right? He is not a starting player in the NFL. So insert Connor McGovern, possibly. We're going to look at his PFF grades in just a moment. But our sub-battle this week is with our AFC South foe, the Tennessee Titans. So we got a fresh slate, 0-0 to start the week. It's Monday. But here's the good news. Titans Today host Abby Alonso, she's off. Texans fans, take no days off. So hit that sub button down below and let's beat the Titans this week in subscribers. Now, Connor McGovern last year, on the other hand, his PFF grades way better than Quesenberry, right? He was the 10th best center in the eyes of PFF in 2022. Nice overall grade of 69. Run blocking and pass blocking also 69. So PFF just very openly horny for Connor McGovern. He gave up 4 penalties, or he's flagged 4 times. He gave up 5 sacks. That's the price of doing business sometimes when you start and play every single snap, and you're maybe not a top 5 or top 8 center, but hey, I'll take top 10 if it's PFF's word. Now, Connor McGovern, a broader scope here, right? Started his career off in Denver. 36 starts over 3 seasons. He was not that great. That's why the Broncos decided to move on from him. But in New York, he thrived with the Jets, I would say. For a guy that was a 5th-round pick that looked like he could have been out of the league in a season or two, he ends up starting 48 games for the Jets, 69, again, Jesus, PFF, overall grade through 48 games, run blocking, pass blocking, 73, 60 on the dot, sacks allowed 15. He played 12 more games. He had a considerable amount of snaps go over to the Jets, so more sacks and more penalties. At the end of the day, an upgrade at the center position is an absolute must for the Houston Texans. Whether it's in free agency with a guy like Ben Jones, who knows a thing or two about playing in the AFC South, or if it's going with Connor McGovern, or it's drafting someone, you cannot roll back the same starting center as last year, who was the worst starting center in football. That just does not send a good message of we are trying to make improvements when you quite literally could not get worse than Quesenberry, and you start him again for 2023. Now, up next on today's show, Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Is he a perfect fit for Houston? Well, Bleacher Report thinks so we're going to talk about that in just a brief moment. But first, I want to pick everyone's brain watching right now and tell me which one you like more, free agency or the draft. I'm a big fan of the draft if I had to pick one, but I think free agency might be a bit more impactful, whereas the draft is a bit of a crapshoot. But you know what? I'm a gambling man. I love a good lottery ticket, and that's what the draft is. So let me know which one you like more in the comment section. Now, Bleacher Report picked Houston as the perfect landing spot or a prediction for Jaxon Smith-Njigba for this year's draft. Now, a recent report, which we'll look at in a moment, said some GMs believe Jaxon Smith-Njigba is the only wide receiver worthy of a first-round grade in this year's draft class. So, the thought process is, if you go quarterback at second, whether it's CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, really whoever the Panthers pass on, do you want to pair him with a wide receiver with the 12th pick in this year's draft? But Jim Nagy, who covers the Senior Bowl, he's kind of well tapped in with front office members across the league, tweeted out early this morning. One thing has become clear on calls around league past couple of weeks. NFL isn't nearly as high on this year's wide receiver class as media. Frequently seeing 4 to 5 wideouts in mocks, have spoken to numerous teams that have only one first-round grade at the position. That is Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Now, I will say, teams might not have a first-round grade on someone like, say, Jordan Addison, right? Well, there's only so many first-round grades, right? There's only so many 5-star recruits in college football. There are 31 picks in this year's first round. I can guarantee you that. There may not be 31 first-round grades, but someone's getting picked in the first round. So is Jaxon Smith-Njigba really the only one deserving of a first-round status? So in his career with the Ohio State Buckeyes, 110 grabs, 1,600 yards, and 10 touchdowns. That's not uber productive for a guy, right? 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns? Like, that is a phenomenal individual season. But for a career, 23 games, why is this guy going round 1, right? Why is he going at 12 potentially? Well, here's why. Look what he did in 2021. Alongside Garrett Wilson, a first-round pick, Chris Olave, the 11th overall pick. Two guys that went in the top half of the first round. And who was better when they all played at Ohio State in 2021? It's hard not to say Jaxon Smith-Njigba. He had 600 more yards than the next closest receiver, right? 9 touchdowns. Remember the Rose Bowl game against Utah? He put up 300 yards and a couple of scores to go along with it. So if he's better than those two guys, who I would say were very productive and impactful rookies last season for their respective ball clubs, yeah, JSN at 12 feels like a potential steal. You know what I mean? So Jaxon Smith-Njigba, in my opinion, is a can't-miss wide receiver prospect. I know that the draft is never a guaranteed thing, and there are lots of guys who we think are going to be great, and somehow they just don't work out. But I feel very confident about JSN, right? I think he's a great pick for any team, regardless of their team needs, because they will never turn down what looks to be proven talent. And JSN is as close as it comes to a sure thing. Now, chime in with me here. Do you want to draft JSN? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no in the comment section below. I'm going to give you my answer in more detail, but first, take advantage of this question and get in the comment section. I will say that Houston should not force a wide receiver at 12. If Jaxon Smith-Njigba is on the board, take him. Like, it's a good pick, okay? But if the idea or the thought train or the thought process is, hey, we're going quarterback at 2, so we should really take a wide receiver at 12 no matter what, well, if JSN goes at 9, 10, or 11, maybe you don't have to go wide receiver, right? Maybe you don't reach on a Quentin Johnston or Jordan Addison or Zay Flowers, even though I like Zay Flowers a lot. If Houston is higher up or higher on some other player at a different position, that's fine. Go best player available. You know why? Because you're not winning a Super Bowl in 2023 anyway. So if you think that this corner or this edge rusher, or whatever position it may be, is better than the next wide receiver on the board if JSN is off, I say go with best player available and just start acquiring talent. And then next offseason, can be an offseason where you approach it as, we've got a good foundation, we've got a lot of good core pieces, now let's fill in the gaps. This is not an offseason to fill in the gaps. This is a blank canvas draft, right? You approach it with any direction you want, knowing that you just got to hit on these early picks, not try and find guys at positions of need. Because right now, Houston has a need at every position.